Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Debbie Arnott and I'm the Mayor at Warrnambool City Council, and I will be chairing tonight's council meeting. I would like to formally welcome everyone watching this council meeting. I'd also like to introduce our councillors. To my left I have Councillor Angie Paspaliaris, Councillor Max Taylor and Councillor Ben Blaine. To my right I have Councillor Ota Okosh and Councillor Richard Ziegler. This council meeting will be live streamed to allow for public viewing and transparency, and if any technical problems interrupt the live stream during the meeting will be adjourned until the issues are rectified. This scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with council's governance rules, and any interruptions to the meeting or actions not in line with behaviour expectations will be dealt with in accordance with these rules. I'll ask the councillors to stand now, please, for the opening prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners. We will now proceed to the items of the agenda, commencing with the opening prayer and an acknowledgement of the traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Thank you. Councillors, are there any apologies for this meeting? Councillor Ziegler.
Councillor Arnott, I'd like to have it noted that Councillor Jelly has made an apology for this evening.
Thank you. Do I have a mover that the council accept the apology from Councillor Ziegler? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillors, at item 3 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting of Council held on the 1st of May 2023. Do I have a mover? Councillor Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd like to move that the minutes of the scheduled meeting of Council held on the 1st of May 2023 be confirmed as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, are there any declarations of conflicts of interest this evening? No, thank you. Our Warrnambool City Library is not only well received by our local community, but it is acknowledged internationally now. The library has won 2 awards at the International Archiser A+ Awards. It was the jury winner in the libraries category, with judges selecting it above projects in the United States, Taiwan, France, Canada and China. And what an accolade that is. It was also named the Popular Choice winner in the Architect and Learning category, and with only a few days to vote, the community jumped on board to put the library at the top of the nominations. So that is just amazing. There are potentially more awards on the horizon with the Warrnambool Library and Learning Centre, also shortlisted for an Australian Interior Design Award and 3 AIA Victorian Architectural Awards, with the winners to be announced in June. There's no doubt that our library is world class and it is a major draw card for our city. And I think it's just amazing that a city of our size has been able to compete successfully on the international stage with our library facility. And we are also a finalist in the Victorian Tourism Industry Council Top Tourist Town Awards. A public vote combined with a judging panel will determine the winners, so I'm urging everyone to get on the website and vote for our city. I'm sure we can do this together. As well, on June 23rd, the Salter Search Party is being held at the Warrnambool Botanic Gardens, and this event was very successful last year and it looks like it will be again. All the details are on Council website. It's free, so mark the calendar and get along. Thank you. CEO, are there any questions tonight?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, we have two questions. One is from Kay Avard and the other is from Mr Jim Burke. I'm not sure if these people are in the audience or gallery.
Yes, I've got, is that Kay or Jim? You can please stand.
So would you like me to read out your question or would you like to read it? Yes, please. Great. So the question from Kay Avard is, and I'll paraphrase this, but Ms Avard's asking why there was a pornographic art exhibition at the Warrnambool Art Gallery over the summer period in relation to a number of displays that were on at the gallery. And so my response to that is there was an exhibition entitled Self-Creation, which was held between the 26th of November to the 5th of March. It explored the ideas of gender presented through the medium of DIY and low-budget self-produced music videos. The exhibition invited audiences to reconsider understandings of gender, sexual identity, community care and self-creation. It's important to note that upon entering the exhibition area, viewers were met with a description of the exhibition alongside with a content advisory warning. This signage engaged audiences directly, allowing them to make an informed decision should they wish to view the exhibition. Certainly, while the exhibition did present minor moments of sexualised themes and nudity, the exhibition should not by any means be considered pornographic. The exhibition was supported by the Victorian State Government at Midsummer Festival. Exhibitions which empower LGBTIQA+ people and display their works in spaces which have historically denied their visibility are important for the developing a safe and equitable community.
Thank you, Andrew. And a further question. Is Mr Jim Burke here? No, so I'll get you to read that out,
So
Andrew.
the question from Mr Burke is in relation to Lindock Living, noting that they've recently completed the Lindock Living Healthcare development, which had a planning permit condition requiring the construction of a footpath on the Hopkins Road frontage. Mr Burke has noted that recently there's been considerable commentary in the local media on the potential sale of this primary healthcare centre. Would Warrnambool City Council allow the sale to proceed if that footpath had not been built or at least the construction commenced? Or is there some other valid vehicle available to the council that would ensure the footpath is constructed at the developer's expense? So I would just note from the planning team that council has been in discussion with Lindock around the delivery of the footpath along the frontage. Lindock, we understand, are working on scheduling the construction of the footpath amongst their other priorities. It's also noted that the front of the building is not yet used and no footpath connections are provided either side of the development. Should the facility be sold, the relevant landscaping plans that form part of the planning permit for the development will carry with the land. It's important to note that planning permits carry with land, not individuals or companies, and they would therefore be a requirement of any future owner should that eventuate.
Thank you. There's no further questions?
No further questions.
Right, thank you. We'll now move on to item 7, reports. Item 7.1, Warrnambool Art Gallery Business Case, agenda page number 5, Directorate Department Community Development. This report provides a summary of the findings from the business case for a new Warrnambool Art Gallery at Cannon Hill and recommends next steps to progressing the planning process for a new Warrnambool Art Gallery. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the council receives the business case for a new regional art gallery located at Cannon Hill, but does not proceed with further exploration of the Cannon Hill site due to the significant costs associated with construction and recurrent costs and the marginal rate of return on investment. And the second part allocates $65,000 to complete a business case for the existing Liebig Street site in the 2023-2024 annual budget.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak to the motion?
I certainly would, Mayor. Originally, I voted against the Cannon Hill business plan last time because I remembered the public indignation when it was suggested for the new Performing Arts Centre in 1981. I also had personal misgivings about that iconic space being ruined. The business case, however, is a necessity if we ask for money from funding bodies. We must do a business case for each of these things when we build anything. But it must be remembered that mostly that money comes from other sources, not from council coffers. So the business case was passed, and tonight, if this one gets through, this motion gets through, it'll be forgotten. We won't have to worry about Cannon Hill being built on. The current site in Liebig Street is what we need to look at now, because I think that other suggestions that we've looked at, things like Flagstaff Hill and whatnot, are probably subject to the same problems of Cannon Hill, geologically and financially. So I'm very happy to see the end of this imposition on Cannon Hill, so long as this motion gets through.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. As Councillor Ziegler indicated, there was a democratic process by this council to decide on a business case for Cannon Hill. After the business case has now been more or less completed, it indicates that a new build at that site is not viable, especially for a $70+ million price tag, which speaks to the complexity in building the structure on the site. I suppose the business case has very much determined that it's not good business, with all things considered, to build a new Warrnambool Art Gallery at Cannon Hill. I have, however, concerns that council's not yet thoroughly picked apart the community's collective brain about where an alternative site may be desired, but I feel that given the recommendation, there could be good value in spending some extra money in the short term to properly assess the Liebig Street location and see what that could look like. Whilst I understand there is an increase of funds required now, there may be a lot more required down the track for a completely new business case. And perhaps this additional money will adequately assess both main site options, and any future business cases can be applied to a different location. Of course, that will be for a greater cost. So I am happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Does any other councillor wish to speak on this matter? No? Councillor Blaine, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I think at the end of all this is it was a disappointing decision to end up at this outcome. I believe community dissatisfaction over the location of this business case was clear very early on, even before we voted. Obviously, consultation wasn't carried out well. The council misread what Warrnambool wanted. And the reports come back and it said what we all knew. It wasn't economically viable to build an art gallery there, which is great. The original state funding's now been spent with council's own funds, and now it's proposed to spend another $65,000 on another case. Like, I do support not pursuing Cannon Hill as a site for an art gallery. I didn't support it from the start, and I don't support it now. And I think this is a special site in Warrnambool that does need to be protected. But I don't agree with ratepayers having to pay for another $65,000 in the current climate with all the cost of living pressures everyone's under. I don't think it's fair. But I will support the motion not to progress Cannon Hill. But I'm not in support of the extra funds to do another business case, but that is the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd just like to support Councillor Ziegler's comments and Councillor Paspaliaris' comments not to proceed with Cannon Hill site and proceed with the allocation of $65,000 for a new business case for the existing Liebig Street site. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Rakosh?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I originally supported the art gallery to be on Cannon Hill as a business case. But now, as we all see that there is a cost attached to it, which is not affordable, I support not to be there, but I support the new business case at Liebig Street. It was a popular case in Warrnambool and prompt maybe some of our retirees to come back to public life, which is good, it was healthy for me to see them active. But again, it was obvious that Cannon Hill is not a preferable place to have art gallery, and we respect this, and that's why now we have another case, business case on Liebig Street. So I'm in support of new case.
Thank you, Councillor Rakosh. There is no doubt that Warrnambool City needs a new art gallery, and we really do. We have a very valuable collection that is unable to be displayed. We're restricted for space, and there's a lot of problems with the existing gallery. Yes, I supported a business case only, to look at Cannon Hill and to look at alternatives. It was about trying to be inspirational. So the business case has come back, and we make decisions based on data and evidence. The evidence does not support that type of spend now at Cannon Hill. However, I think it is important that we still pursue looking at a new gallery. It could be many years down the track, and maybe a lot of us won't even be here by the time that something like that is imagined. If we put out our hand for funding, we actually need to have in our repertoire a second business case. Treasury will not look at anything without that second business case. So this pursuit of a business case at Cannon Hill has not been in vain. That data, those reports still hang strong. I also want to point out that what a regional art gallery could actually do for Warrnambool. Now, all of you here would have heard about the very successful Elvis exhibition at the Bendigo Art Gallery. That Elvis gallery, that display, brought 223,000 visitors to Bendigo. It contributed $67 million to the economy. That was just Bendigo's economy, and $22 million to the state of Victoria. Now, my question is, why can't we at Warrnambool have a slice of that? I think we should, and I think we should still be aspirational to do that. It's about trying, it is about trying to put Warrnambool on an international map. So thank you. Please be quiet while we continue the meeting. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak further and close the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm heartened by the comments of my fellow councillors, particularly those of Councillor Blaine. I'm aware of the fact that we've got an extremely valuable collection of art pieces in Warrnambool, and it's the sort of thing that we need to conserve and preserve. It's one of the reasons why I support looking for a new gallery. We've got to look after it. The stuff that we've got there it's priceless, a lot of it. but we've got to put it in the right place. That means that we need, the way the funding system works, we've got to do a business case to prove to the bodies that fund these things that we can actually do it. Keep in mind that Hamilton's been looking for a new art gallery for 10 years and had their hand out for money for their new art gallery for 10 years. It might be the same for us. But we have to start the process. We don't have to put it at Cannon Hill. And it's confirmed for me just how iconic and just how important that particular open space is for the people of Warrnambool. As if I needed it confirmed, the opposition has been very plainly spoken, and I'm very happy to have been able to put this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. With that matter dealt with, I will now call for a motion to suspend standing orders in order for Council to hear the submissions received from the community in response to Council's draft plan 2021 to 2025 for the 2023 revision and draft budget. Councillors, do I have a motion for suspending standing orders?
So, yeah, happy
Yep.
to.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Is there a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. All those in favour? Carried. I would like to take this opportunity to thank those in the gallery for their attendance tonight. We are now going to be hearing from members of the community who make formal submissions as part of the budget process and have registered to speak tonight. If you would like to stay to hear those submissions, you are most welcome. But if you have no further interest in this evening's agenda, you are also welcome to leave now if you wish.
We might. Can you guys go up and close the doors? Maybe one. To them. Good job. Good job. We're not allowed to shut the door, otherwise it seems to be close in there. I just asked people.
I will now call on members of the public who registered to speak to their submissions. I will call you up one at a time and you will each have 5 minutes to address council.
Why only 5 minutes? We're not in the meeting anymore, so they can have as long as they want. Because we're not in a meeting, we've just suspended the meeting, so they can have as long as they like. I've got nowhere else to be.
Yeah, technically it's correct, yeah.
Okay, that's fine, Councillor Blow. Okay, so the first person I'd like to call up is Diana Young.
Thank you. My name is Diana Young. My submission had the same topic as last year's submission, which was the maintenance and upgrade of accessible parking bays. 14 years ago, the Australian standard for off-street accessible parks was upgraded to recognise the range of modern aids available for people with a disability. These include aids which can be lifted out of the back seat or downloaded from a car roof, both requiring additional ground space. The standard for on-street accessible parks was upgraded 4 years ago. The only upgrade I am aware of is at the Reid Oval, where it was necessary to satisfy requirements in relation to the capacity of the combined new pavilion and old pavilion. I assume the cost was included in the pavilion overall figure, not the budget for the maintenance, but unfortunately these 4 parks are still not completed at Reid Oval. In the budgets of years 2020-21 and 2021-22, $30,000 per year for upgrade and maintenance of accessible parks was allocated. Nothing was spent either year. In my submission for 2022-2023, I asked for a commitment of $60,000 and, at the suggestion of some engineering staff, that an audit of off-street and on-street accessible car parks be done. Only $30,000 was allocated again. I received no reply to my submission, and I have been unable to ascertain if any parks were actually upgraded or tidied up, and whether an audit was done. I would like to know this. In this year's budget, there is no longer an itemised figure for upgrade and maintenance of accessible parking. On page 49, there is an item, Infrastructure Accessibility Program. It was originally $62,000 with a $10,000 grant. However, I noticed today on looking it up, it's now $63,000. Does this include upgrade and maintenance of accessible parks? If so, how much of it is allocated to that? Is there an actual program, and then where could one obtain a copy? I am asking that a figure of at least $60,000 be allocated this year for upgrade and maintenance, and also, if not already completed, an audit be done. Also, as I received no reply to last year's submission, I would appreciate a reply to this year's. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I'll now ask Rosalie Meadows if she would like to come to the microphone and speak. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, councillors.
Welcome.
I'm John Finnerty. I'm talking to you today on behalf of the West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House Reference Group, and some of the reference group are sitting in the audience today. Just wanted to really support an item in Council's budget, which is provision for the design and construction of the West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House, and congratulate Council staff and the councillors for putting this proposal together. The community members of the West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House are very excited about the potential for this project to go ahead. It's certainly been something we've been supporting for quite some time. Not necessarily myself as an individual, I'm only relatively new in West Warrnambool, but some of the other members of the team have been supporting this project for in excess of 5 years. The West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House was actually only founded in 2019 officially, albeit support for it has gone a long time before that. It's a project that's funded by the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing and delivered by Council and Council's extremely talented Community House Coordinator, Jill Parker. Rather than cover things I've already addressed in my submission, I really just wanted to draw your attention to the benefits that a neighbourhood house can potentially provide to West Warrnambool. Having now lived in West Warrnambool for a few years, I understand that the council infrastructure in the area is relatively sparse. There's not much in the way of food options in West Warrnambool, as identified in Southwest Healthcare's recent research paper as a food desert. And one of the things the West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House wants to deliver is education to the community on healthy eating and growing your own food, amongst many other things. In 2017, the Victorian Government did a report on neighbourhood houses where they surveyed 47,000 people. They identified that what a community house does, a neighbourhood house I should say, I always use the wrong term, what a neighbourhood house does is helps to connect the community and reduce social isolation amongst people who live together and nearby each other but don't often have an opportunity to interact. And I think that now more than ever that's incredibly important. That's really all I wanted to say. Big thank you, and I hope that the councillors support the proposed West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House in the draft council budget. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'd like to invite Helen Brown to the microphone.
Mayor Arnott, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address you on these concerns. Mayor Arnott, when you were standing for the election, one of your ideologies was that you believed in prudent spending and accountability, that the Warrnambool City Council should be able to work within a budget and not be reliant on increasing the burden on ratepayers with higher rates and taxes. I respectfully asked all of the council to exercise that insight now. Every draft budget is aspirational. As you state in the preamble to your budget, the budget aims to continue Council's commitment to invest in services and infrastructure in a financially responsible way by balancing the needs of our community while achieving long-term financial sustainability. It appears to me that this draft budget does not meet all the needs of our community. A significant and pressing need at present being relief to the ratepayers and residents from the relentless increases in their own budgets from cost of living and interest rate rises, which appear to be continuing in the near future. The City Council is required to act conservatively and with restraint to reduce the burden on ratepayers and residents caught in the current cost of living spiral is within this council's capacity by easing further increases that may not be necessary, by reworking your expenditure and prioritising what is absolutely necessary in this budget. I respectfully request council to review their budget, prioritise their spending to reduce the necessity for a rates increase, and consider pushing out expenditure that council believes justifies another rate increase to the cap limit. That was my first point. The next is on the Cannon Hill site, which you have voted on today. There are a couple of things I wanted to draw to your attention, and one of them is we appear to have an art gallery that is underperforming. We talk about having 55,000 people walk in the door, but I have not been able to find the demographic to tell me who is walking through the door. I do know that we have schools and excursions that visit the gallery, and it occurs to me with the new gallery, that demographic are not likely to A, spend any money in the gallery shop, or B, dine out at a fine restaurant. So I would ask that before you proceed with your research into a new gallery, that we really understand our current operating gallery and the potential and how it can improve better before we have to have the confidence in you to be spending our money on a new gallery. So I now say that I respectfully request this council to reassess providing another $65,000 for a business case or other divining research into the current art gallery and to instead develop a performance plan to create a vibrant gallery in the next few years to show we ratepayers and residents that the gallery management are up to a growth task. They are innovative in designing and attracting niche exhibitions, which other regional galleries I've researched do, and utilise exhibitions from vibrant local and regional art community, preferably with experience in the council and not yet another consultant. Flagstaff Hill. We have experienced a brief consultation process for a new business case for Flagstaff Hill. The consultation page on the website states, the preparation of a business case is the first stage in the process. The business case will investigate options, viability, effectiveness, and the economic sustainability of the project. It says this is a long-term and visionary project that does not have any bearing on the current day-to-day operations of the site. Current day-to-day operations concerns us as ratepayers and residents considerably. The day-to-day is producing in the next financial year almost a $1 million loss in your proposed budget. Rectification to stop the fiscal hemorrhaging and turn around the performance is of the highest priority for us. Until both the Art Gallery and Flagstaff Hill show a distinct and fiscally sound improvement in their performance, further development should be pushed out in the budget. This will indicate to the ratepayers and residents that this council is hearing the community's concerns and managing both of those utilities' assets in a fiscally responsible way, and that means turning around their performance. And the last one I've got is the West Warrnambool Community House. I'm a resident in West Warrnambool, and whilst the demographic is shown to be a poor demographic, a poorly educated demographic, the things that attract funding to put a community house in to skill low-skilled people, I can assure you that is not the West Warrnambool I live in. I am in Lavrock Road. I'm at the Merri River end of Lavrock Road. The whole area is starting to regenerate with young families, with tradespeople, with professionals, because those homes were built in the 1980s, and as those residents are now moving into aged care homes or into the Stone Garden, we have young people actually buying up those properties. So the proposal was prepared by the community members of the West Warrnambool Neighbour House Reference Group. At no time has this group engaged in the community where the installation is being proposed. One of their means of addressing the food desert in Warrnambool is to actually produce a location that may be able to host and support a micro garden to teach people to grow their food. Perhaps we need to be looking at a community garden in West Warrnambool or the areas of West Warrnambool, even if it's floodplain, because the floods aren't going to really do a lot of damage, so that we can have continuity with people growing their own food and becoming more self-sufficient. The proposal says the potential to locate the West Warrnambool Neighbour House with an existing park with play facilities would be mutually benefit to both uses and further activate the open area. Unlike Beamish Street Kindergarten, the proposed Pecton Avenue playground is frequented by many unsupervised children and use the full gamut of the open space. Child safety has the potential to become an issue with this co-location, as it has been alluded to in the agenda operating in the Beamish Street Kindergarten. The proposed development will diminish the playground space and open ground considerably. You could refer to the schematic on page 308 in your attachments. I'm nearly finished. The City Council proposes to earmark $500,000 in this proposed budget for the development of this utility using demountables located in the playground environment. I do have concerns. I have written to the council back on Monday last week and I've not had a reply yet, so I'm just going to briefly raise them with you. There's been no consultation. I have already said that. I am concerned about the security for both the users of the community house and the children, family and many older adults from that area using the playground, for a couple of reasons. The increase in traffic and street parking using a house that is accessed from Pecton Avenue presents a risk for children of all ages, often unaccompanied by adults. And if you've been near a playground, you will see children. They come barrelling en masse out of the park straight across the road. Now, the council has done very good work at upgrading the Pecton playground and has put very good rerouting road access with a speed hump, but there are no gates. So if the use of the community house in that location means that there will be parking on the verges of Pecton Avenue, there is an issue then with both visibility and traffic for that location. I'm also concerned about the security of the asset itself, and it may be compromised because it would be in an isolated area in the playground and potentially subject to vandalism and misuse by both adults and kids who are often gathered there at night. Because you may or may not know, it is actually like a community hub for teenagers at night where they can meet relatively safely, non-alcohol area, and they get together and do whatever teenagers still do these days. In its proposed location, it is perhaps necessary to think about a fit-for-purpose security fencing around the house, but that in itself will reduce the open area available to the children and their families of the playground. That area that you're proposing in Pecton Playground is quite an unusual shape. If you look at your schematic, it's like a bear's face with two ears out here. Now those two ears is open ground at number 10 and number 22 Pecton Avenue. They are a house block size, both of them. It occurs to me that that may provide a better option to put the community house, because we sure do want a community house, so that if you perhaps put the community house demountables in number 22, there is no reason number 10 couldn't become the community garden, not just for those people who are learning to be self-sufficient, but also for the community of West Warrnambool to have their community garden and be growing their own food and vegetables. So there's a few other things, but the last one that genuinely concerns me is the child's safe potential for unlawful attention of the children using the playground. Where it is proposed at the moment, the community house will sit up on the mound and actually overview the playground. I can tell you we use the playground regularly with our grandchildren, and everyone there is on alert for any unaccompanied person that is lingering in the playground or lingering around the child. That's community. But it does concern me that being in an open area where the playground is, there is no opportunity to actually keep an eye out for the safety of the kids from users and vice versa, because there are older teenagers using that as well. So I would like to ask the council respectfully, will you consider where the location is proposed at the moment and work with us in the West Warrnambool community to use the entirety of that site and get the very best outcome that reputationally enhances the community house and the community that use the playground, rather than risk any damage to it. Madam Mayor and councillors, I truly think I've taken more than 5 minutes, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. I would like to invite Laxon Fowler to the microphone now, please.
Mayor and councillors and council officers, thank you for receiving my submission for the 23-24 budget and for permitting me to speak. And just to say thank you all for the work you councillors do, often without thanks, and acknowledging that perhaps you can't please many of the people for much of the time. I do appreciate that. My major topic is concerned with the rates rise. Whilst messaging that the budget is responsible and conservative, etc., it appears that the maximum allowable take has been made, the largest just going straight up to the automatic cap, as though automatically, without the least mention of need or justification to do so. As a ratepayer during this time of raised inflation and financial stress, when most are buckling in, I do expect our council to actually practice restraint, prudence and frugality, not to do the opposite. With regards to the recently completed art gallery business case, which was discussed earlier, such a substantial investment, that is to say the $65,000 needed for a business case study to be done, ought to be preceded by some cluster of preliminary screening investigations and inquiries to define the basis for that business case, covering such topics as the market type and capacity, the location, integration with related facilities, etc. This preliminary work appears not to have been done in the case just completed, and the $65,000 has thus been wasted. Please do the preparation, community consultation, etc. before embarking on the next expensive stage. I do appreciate that a business case has to be done, but it would typically be preceded by laying the groundwork and actually getting the definition of the study correct. As a thought, our Lighthouse Theatre offers a good insight into art's market type and scale for Warrnambool. A range of appropriate scale events, usually well attended, satisfactory in relation to the realistic expectation for this city. We simply don't expect to see Guns N' Roses or the Foo Fighters here. Likewise, I don't expect us to see Elvis or the definitive Picasso or Impressionist exhibition here. It's just not realistic. People might expect it's a comparison to Bendigo or Geelong or so forth. I don't expect that we'll ever see this bullet train that some people have talked about also. The cost and capacity of such a facility has got no chance of flying economically. So I would like to see us actually reset our goals properly and not be too aspirational in regard to what sort of art gallery or other facilities we're looking for. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Laxon. I'd like to invite Susie Wellens now, please.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard as I represent 215 strong members of the Warrnambool Swimming Club. Our submission was pretty much to the point and was our club was asking why it is that the extended season for the outdoor 50-metre pool has not been included in this year's budget. Considering that a report was provided to council which outlined the cost of such an extended season as well as the impact that this subsequent lack of extended season would have on the Warrnambool Swimming Club, particularly our swimmers. In the time that I've been member of the Warrnambool Swimming Club, in the past 4 seasons of that being president, we have consistently had to negotiate the outdoor season. The season is set by council each year for the past 20 years, has not and does not suit the current 100 competitive swimmers that utilise the facilities well over 6 times per week. Whilst on most occasions, recent negotiations have resulted in a 50-metre pool being open for a few weeks past the end date, which is usually the long weekend in March, the pool still closes before national championships are attended in April. severely disadvantaging our swimmers who have worked tirelessly to achieve this level of success. Can Council name a sport undertaken in Warrnambool that has national representation every year? And currently we have 8 athletes at national level and all attended Queensland Brisbane National Championships this year with great success. Would Council consider closing and restricting access to netball courts and football fields during pre-season and finals? Unlike land-based sports, we have limited control over access to our facilities. We appreciate these are specialised and require a different level of management and maintenance. However, members of the Warrnambool Swimming Club pay their fair share to access facilities. Club membership, affiliation with Swimming Victoria and Swimming Australia, lane hire, entry every time those swimmers access the pool 6 times a week, as well as a gym membership. It's a fairly costly sport to be involved in. Compared to our city swimmers such as Ballarat, Geelong and Melbourne, our swimmers are disadvantaged by the current season set by Council. They are not conditioned adequately when beginning the long course season and are unable to maintain competition condition when we go into national level competition. This was so evident in the success of at this year's Nationals. All attendees, as I said, 8 of those, significantly climbed the national ranking in this year, and that included our own very own Finn Ginley, who only 12 months prior to attending Nationals ceased cancer treatment. And he was able to do so because the pool was open right up until they attended Nationals in April. Unfortunately, there aren't any alternatives in the region. Once Aqua Zone closes for the season, swimmers are forced to revert back to an indoor 25-metre pool, which is simply not suitable and definitely not acceptable when these kids work so hard and tirelessly for the sport that they love. For all the potential we have, the skill of the coaches, we cannot rise to the standard of our city partners without the access to suitable facilities for the necessary time. We want to see the pool open between October and April. Our club is continuing to grow with popularity of the sport, 30% increase each year that has even been seen during COVID times. We are confident the community would support and benefit from a longer season. We've already seen mentioned in the standard that the Masters Swimming Club and various other community groups are calling for an all year round access to the facility. Whilst we understand this is by no means a feasible, outcome with the current state of the facility, there is definitely merit in considering a more suitable outdoor season, not only for the Warrnambool Swimming Club, but for the community as a whole, and would definitely contribute to supporting the Warrnambool Swimming Club in addressing the Warrnambool City Council key priorities of the Warrnambool Municipal Health and Wellbeing Plan that's set for 2021 through to 2025. I ask, if not now, when? 20 years of negotiating, the club is not getting any smaller and the demand any less for facilities. If not accounted now in the budget, constant need for negotiation will continue to take a toll on the longevity of our volunteers and committee members, further impacting on the club and our swimmers. I really do ask that the council consider budgeting for that extended season. You might see it as an extended season, but it's a season that is needed for our club to continue to experience the success they do. These kids work exceptionally hard. They are up at 5:20 in the morning. They get themselves organised for school and they work hard at school as well, and they deserve to have access to facilities as their city partners do. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you. Thank you to all our speakers tonight. I will now call for a motion to move us back into the meetings so that we can note the submissions. Councillors, do I have a motion that standing orders be resumed? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 7.2, the revised Council Plan 2021 to 2025 and draft budget 2023 to 2024 submissions. Agenda page number 13, directed corporate strategies. To present and note the submissions received from the community in response to Council's draft budget plan 2021 to 2025, 2023 revision and draft budget 23 to 24. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that council note the submissions received from the community in relation to the revised council plan 2021 to 2025 and the draft budget 2023-2024.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd just like to take the time to thank every single one of you for taking the time to not only go through the budget but to present your thoughts and where you think we haven't got it right, and it gives us an awful lot to think about because the budget isn't set in stone. It's something that we'll have to make a decision on the next 3 weeks, and I'd just really like to thank you again for taking the time to present and go through the budget. It's really good to see so much engagement this year from everyone, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'll make the point that I'm heartened by the fact that we've had so many submissions and surprised that there was such a range of submissions. I think that it's that quality of submission that helps us make our deliberations accurate and responsive to the community. So again, I'll echo Councillor Blaine's words.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I support the submission to include native habitat vegetation and native trees in many Warrnambool nature strips that are void of this vegetation. I also support a footpath along McMeekin Road, and finally I support and I'm in favour of extending the outdoor 50-metre pool season up to early April to allow swimmers to train in a 50-metre facility leading up to their national championships. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'll just reiterate and thank you everyone for putting forward your submissions. These submissions really do help us as a council. It does give us extra food for thought, and as Councillor Blaine and Councillor Ziegler said, over the next few weeks we will take them definitely under consideration. So thank you everyone. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.3, proposed deliberative engagement for West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House concept. Agenda page 21, Directed Community Development. This report provides an update on the proposed process, timelines and the deliberative engagement approach for the West Warrnambool community for the proposed development and construction of a West Warrnambool Neighbourhood House facility at Pecton Avenue in 23-24. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? We've got some questions. Councillor Blaine?
Yeah, I've got a couple through you, Mayor. This is a temporary neighbourhood house. What's the proposed end date with this facility, and what's going to happen and what's going to be the next steps, seeing as it's only temporary?
I think those questions are best answered by the Director of Community Services.
Ingrid?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Blaine. The process from should this recommendation be endorsed and adopted by Council, this will then activate the deliberative engagement process, and to undertake that we have a proposed draft outline of what the facility could look like. We have stressed that it is a temporary facility and we are anticipating that it will give us several years to further explore other opportunities for a more permanent or for a permanent venue. As we've said in the report, officers have explored possible sites, but there's limited infrastructure and opportunities to co-locate with other allied services. So in response to community demand, we've suggested there's at least a temporary one that will have a timeline on it for several years. We are anticipating, officers are anticipating that we can give ourselves up to 10 years to resolve where the permanent facility could be, because obviously we will be responding to ongoing development and other opportunities. There's nothing in the short term, hence why there is a long horizon on this one, because we'll wait and see as things progress in that part of Warrnambool. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, I've got
Yep.
a couple more. Then how does this temporary neighbourhood house, because it's sort of, I'm sort of still trying to work out the next steps, but how does this neighbourhood house then feed into the community service and infrastructure plan, especially with what was identified in the community's needs for 2026?
Through you, Mayor Arnott. So the question is, how does this feed into the community services infrastructure plan?
And the needs that are identified, especially for West Warrnambool in 2026.
Yep. So we have taken the latest consensus data and numerous other data pools to support this particular project. The numerous data sources range, can cover food safety to other challenging issues that families are facing in that area, ranging from data from other health providers across Warrnambool. So there are numerous feeders into why we have selected Pecton Avenue.
The question was, though, it identifies in the community services infrastructure plan that there is a need in West Warrnambool for 3 to 4 community meeting rooms, a multi-purpose community centre, maternal and child health. Where are these going to be located in this current proposal?
So not all those services are going to be located in this particular facility. It's a neighbourhood house. Through the consultation process, through you, Mayor Arnott, is that we will identify specifically what those services will be in regard to the current demographics and the current needs of that community. We officers are not going to predict what we think those services are, although we do have data coming from the existing programming. We will be opening that up to the community. For example, the community garden, that is already information that we've been fed, and that is not actually highlighted in the community service infrastructure plan, but that is something that we know is very topical for that particular community.
Then I suppose when you talk about the location, why isn't it located near, because it's actually outlined not only in the community service infrastructure plan, but also in the North Dennington structure plan, that it should be located near the Dennington Rec Reserve or St John's. So why haven't those sites been considered when they're actually in the structure plans?
So through you, Mayor Arnott. So we've done extensive exploration of what we think is suitable for the type of programming that would come for a neighbourhood house. Through this deliberate engagement, there may be other suggestions that we may have missed, albeit that the community infrastructure plan may suggest that. We're also about to embark on a refresh of that particular document in the 23-24 financial year to upgrade or update the information that's sitting in that plan.
And just one last one. It's quite clear in all the community service infrastructure planning that these sites need to be near public transport. So where is the closest public transport to this site?
Sorry, Councillor Bland, just the last question. How are we going to organise public...
It's outlined in the community service infrastructure plan. There needs to be to be successful, all these facilities need to be near public transport. Where is the closest public transport to this site?
Through you, Mayor, I can't actually answer that, and I haven't got my project manager here, but through the deliberative engagement, we are actually looking at the public transport routes and also whether we need to do any advocacy with public transport, for example, with buses, to explore route changes has been occurred in other similar models like this throughout the southwest.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, you have a question?
I just had a question just based on what we've heard already tonight. Just with the first part of the recommendation, endorses the commencement of the design of a temporary West Warrnambool neighbourhood house. Is there room to move there in terms of what that means in particular? So there's obviously been suggestion on the site on the actual land. Does that fit in with commencement of a design, as in, are we voting specifically on the site, the location of the buildings on that site, or is that also up for deliberative engagement and consultation?
Ingrid,
Through you, Mayor Arnott, officers are seeking confirmation to progress with the design on that particular site. So it's very site-specific. Officers aren't requiring an endorsement on the detailed design because that will be through the deliberative engagement process. So there's expectations that could change, but it is very specific to the site.
Okay. Are there any further questions?
Sorry, I've just got one more then.
Yep.
So what is the consultation actually about then? The location seems set, the building seems set, so what are we doing the engagement for?
So through you, Mayor Arnott, so the design is not set, it's throughout the whole document refers to it being concept. The site is specific. So the deliberative engagement will be seeking community feedback on whether the community is comfortable with that site. And also the deliberative engagement will be looking at, here is a possible concept. What is community's feedback around the concept design, and therefore what would be the programs and services that would come out of a facility like that with this type of design. So both are up for the deliberative engagement. With regard to the site, this one is specifically related to Pecton Avenue so that we can get specific feedback on the pros and cons of that particular site.
Thank you, Ingrid. Councillor Paspaliaris.
Can I then just clarify my question in that the site being Pecton Avenue, is there flexibility in the actual location of the portable structures on that site at Pecton Avenue, as in location-wise? Let's say it's up for Pecton Avenue, but within that land area, it can be placed in a different location depending on deliberative engagement?
Yep, through you, Mayor, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We're satisfied with answers, everyone. Thank you. So no more questions. Everyone's happy? Good. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
That Council 1 endorses the commencement of the design of a temporary West Warrnambool neighbourhood house and commencement of deliberative engagement with the community using existing 2022-23 budget. 2, considers the feedback from the engagement process and, if endorsed, supports the construction of the West Warrnambool neighbourhood house at the Pecton Avenue Park, informed by the deliberative engagement outcomes with the West Warrnambool community. 3, notes the allocation of $500,000 in the draft budget for financial year 2023-24 for construction of the temporary West Warrnambool neighbourhood house, comprising of site set out, landscaping, neighbourhood house installation, 2 portable structures and footpath construction. And 4, receives a project report from officers post-construction, including any additional works and correlating external grant funding strategies if applicable. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will, thank you. I think listening to what's been said and some of the questions being raised, this would appear to be a case of something of this design and suggestion being temporary for, or a long temporary measure, is better than what's currently being offered, or better than nothing really. It's an improved scenario to co-location as it's currently, as is currently the case. And there have been other options and locations assessed previously which have greater negative aspects and positive. However, I feel as though this doesn't preclude council from looking obviously at a permanent site, but I think what this could offer and the way in which the deliberative engagement, if done properly and thoroughly, it can formulate something good for this particular design and build, but also for what comes next. So happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd certainly go along with Councillor Paspaliaris's comments, and I'm certainly aware of other comments made regarding the neighbourhood house earlier tonight. But it has provided social and economical support to many disadvantaged community members of West Warrnambool from a temporary location at 21 Beamy Street, but Council has now recognised the model of delivery, including a kindergarten and a neighbourhood house co-located within the same facility, is not ideal and poses risks to the diversity of programs offered through a neighbourhood house. For this reason, Council has identified potential location of Pecton Avenue Park to provide much needed social connection, educational, recreational and supportive activities to enrich lives of the West Warrnambool community so that they might otherwise never have this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler?
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments about the whole process, and they relate to all community hubs or neighbourhood houses, not only West Warrnambool. I don't see that the West Warrnambool neighbourhood house project needs to be couched in terms of a social service to disadvantaged people. Yes, that demographic is relevant for West Warrnambool, and yes, we have to make that consideration, but this project, any project that gets off for a neighbourhood house for West Warrnambool, has to service the whole of West Warrnambool, that community. It's relevant to everybody that lives there. I think that it needs to be in West Warrnambool. Councillor Blaine has mentioned places like St John's and the Dennington Recreational Reserve. But because of the nature of the neighbourhood house, and again about the demographic, it needs to be accessible to the people in that specific area. At one point we looked at something on the other side of the highway which would have been completely useless, still in West Warrnambool, but would have been out of reach for the people who actually live in that neighbourhood. It has to be in the neighbourhood for it to be relevant to the people. So these kind of things need to be a definite part of the deliberative process. I'm sure that our council officers will take that into consideration and probably already have. Further, it worries me that this has to be a temporary, it has to be done extremely well, even if it is temporary. I know that it has to be something that we can manage financially, and it has to be done in such a way that West Warrnambool's not without it for very long. So maybe this temporary approach is the only way to go. But I hope it's not a temporary facility that's there forever, which is often what happens with these kind of things.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blaine, you wish to speak?
Councillor Ziegler, we actually agree on a fair few points there. And that point about it being a temporary facility that'll be there forever is a huge concern. I'm a big supporter of community infrastructure, and we don't have enough across the whole city. And West Warrnambool has a real need for this, and you're right, it's not for disadvantaged, it's for young families, it's for anyone that accesses any council services. But I feel the users, the workers, the people of West Warrnambool deserve better than a couple of demountables on the corner of Pecton Avenue. In my view, it's a very short-term solution to a long-term problem. This isn't a strategic project that'll be able to grow and adapt with the needs of West Warrnambool. The demountables have a shorter useful life than a dedicated facility, a couple of demountables and a playground, it doesn't cut it with me. West Warrnambool deserves better than that. The council need to get the community asset strategy in place across the city and do the work to provide a real facility that can continue to grow for West Warrnambool, adapt and actually deliver the needs of what West Warrnambool needs. It's the same across the municipality. A cheap solution, in my opinion, of a couple of demountables respond to a short-term need, it's not a really good use of ratepayers' funds. It's also the neighbourhood house. 50% of the services that come out of it, according to the report, come from the Department of Health and Human Services. There should be a conversation there, because if we're chipping in, they should be chipping in, and together we can actually produce an incredible outcome for West Warrnambool. And it would actually address the long-term problem, building a real facility that actually has room for growth and better services for the neighbourhood, which I believe is exactly what West Warrnambool deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? No. Look, I think I acknowledge all councillors' comments here. I think what we have to zero in on here is deliberative engagement. So let's get that done. Let's see what comes out of that report. I do agree that maybe these portables aren't a long-term solution, but they are a solution that can get something happening a lot sooner. I would rather have something perhaps happening sooner for that community than having to wait another 5, 6, 7 years to get something more permanent. So it's not an ideal situation, but I think for that community we need to push on with it. And it's not just the focus, as everyone has said, on a certain demographic. It's for that community. That community will still continue to grow and evolve, and hopefully with a community house, that'll grow and evolve even better. So, thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Thank you. I will now move on to planning application PP 2022-0258-45 Jamieson Street, Warrnambool. Agenda page number 26, Directorate City Growth. This report provides a summary of the planning assessment that has led to the recommendation contained in the report. Based on the number of objections received, the decision is to be made at a council meeting. Councillors, are there any questions before I seek a motion? Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, Mayor. I apologise, it doesn't necessarily relate to the motion at hand. I'd wonder if someone could organise for the heater to be put on, please.
Is there someone who knows how to put the heating on? It is quite chilly in here.
It's freezing. And I apologise for the interruption.
No, that's all right. Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. So are there any questions about this recommendation? No. So, councillors, do I have a motion? No, I don't have a motion. Councillor Blaine, thank you. What is your motion?
I'd like to move that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to say it's one of the lower density subdivisions we've done. It's only being split in 2. A lot of the ones we've had recently that have gone back have been getting split into 3. I know it's a busy precinct, that Jamieson Street, but basing it off the statutory guidelines, I don't see any reason not to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I acknowledge that the officers have put in a considerable amount of work on the conditions to this planning permit, and I'm more than happy to go along with what they've suggested.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you. Because this application is for subdivision only and doesn't consider built form, I am happy to support the application. Any development on at the rear of this property would require a planning permit approved by council in future, potentially, as well as assessment under the heritage overlay, and this would occur under another notification. So I'm comfortable with the idea that there's already been significant reference to heritage overlay and that side of things. Additionally, the Battle Axe style lot, I don't think imposes much or alters the Jamison street view, and I think that, as it states, it's proposed that it should not look out of place from spatial or oblique views. So I do support this application, as I said. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? No, thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Blaine. I'm sorry. I've just jumped ahead. Sorry, Councillor Blaine. Do you wish to speak to close?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. My apologies, everyone. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. No? Max. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 1. Thank you. That was a little confusing. There we go. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.5, Delegations and Authorisations Policy, agenda page number 32, Directorate Executive Services. This report seeks Council's approval of the Delegations and Authorisations Policy attached in the report. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? No. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. I'd like to move the motion and adopts the Delegations and Authorisations Policy 2023 as per the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. This policy is to provide framework to the areas of delegation and authorisation to address issues identified by the audit lacking general formal policies and or procedures for identifying and allocating responsibilities for legislative compliance. This policy will be the basis for process change and amendments to current procedures to ensure best practice and legislative compliance recommended by the audit. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This policy comes after an internal audit, and given there have been, in my view, some questionable delegations of power previously, it serves to reduce and hopefully eliminate any grey areas around that. We've had a good look through it and have been able to tweak a couple of things, so I'm comfortable that this policy is sound. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this motion? No. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Arnott.
I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 7.6, award of contract 2023046, Japan Street Lower Catchment Drainage Upgrade, agenda page number 36, Directorate City Infrastructure. This report provides information on the award of contract number 2023046, Japan Street Lower Catchment Drainage Upgrade. Are there any questions before I seek a motion? No. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that we accept the recommendations.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd like to say it's another step in the Japan, trying to stop Japan Street from flooding, which has been an ongoing issue for many, many years. It's exciting that it's a local contractor, and I'd like to say thank you. It was the federal government, Local Road and Community Infrastructure Fund that supplied 800,000 to these works, plus the 400,000 from the drainage flood fund. Look, this won't stop the flooding. There's still a risk with a heavy downpour, but it's another step in the right direction to try and protect one of the lowest lying areas of our city. Thank you.
Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, of all the projects that we've undertaken for this particular soggy area, this one actually looks like it might have an effect. It's probably not the be-all and end-all. I think we're on a hiding to nothing, given that that particular area has always been wet and soggy through the winter time. I think that the work done by our officers and led particularly by Director Lee, I think that of all of the projects, as I said, for that Japan Street area, this one looks like it might actually improve the situation for the residents in that area.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Arnott. For many years, as long as I can remember, drainage issues within the Japan Street area have resulted in frequently flood water damage every couple of years to Japan and Lava Street residences. And I'm totally in favour of this contract being awarded to Duggan Civil to upgrade the drainage catchment in this area. And as soon as it is completed, the better for all those concerned. Thank you, Mayor Arnott.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? No, look, I'll just reiterate my fellow councillors there. I'm actually quite excited about this because for years and years and years there's been flooding issues. I feel sorry particularly for the residences, the caravan park there. Hopefully this is a solution that can provide them with some relief, so I think this is great. No further speakers. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak before closing the debate?
Just quickly before we close, drainage is one of those things that when it's working well, no one complains, and it's something that you never see. So, you know, it's like nearly $1 million project, and if it works well, no one will see it, no one will complain. You know, it seems to be the same with all drainage projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay, item 7.7, Advisory Committee Reports, agenda page number 39, Directed Executive Services. This report contains the record of one advisory committee meeting. Are there any questions before I seek an item, on this item before I seek a motion? No, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
That the minutes of the Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting held on the 13th of April 2023 be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Blaine. Councillor Ziegler, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Any councillors wish to speak? No. We'll, no further speakers. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.8, informal meetings of council reports, agenda page number 40, Directorate Executive Services. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council, previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under section 80A(2) of the Local Government Act 1989. Are there any questions regarding this motion? No. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that the record of informal meetings of council held on the 8th, 15th, 22nd and 29th of May 2023 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Paspaliaris, no worries. Do any councillors wish to speak? No. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.9, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report. Agenda page number 41, Directed Executive Services. This report summarises Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council activities since the last scheduled meeting, which particularly relate to key social, economic and environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Councillors, are there any questions on this item before I seek a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what's your question?
This is actually a very selfish question. I wonder if my name could be spelled correctly.
That was my question. Of course.
Of course, I don't think that's too much of an issue, thank you. Councillor Blaine, did you have...
Mine
was the same question? Okay. All right. So are we happy with that? Yeah. Okay. Do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris.
I move that the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blaine, thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
No. Councillor Blaine, do you wish to speak? No. Any councillors wish to speak? No. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We have not received any notices of motion. We'll move on to general business. Councillors, are there any items of general business? No. Urgent business? CEO, do we have received any notices of urgent business?
No.
No. No further, there being no further items of business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:16. Thank you, everyone.